For 15 years, the world's intelligence agencies and military engineers operated under a single, terrifying assumption. They assumed that Iran's Fordow nuclear facility, buried under 300 feet of solid mountain rock and reinforced concrete, was virtually invincible to any conventional air attack. It was the ultimate insurance policy for a nuclear program that the world's major powers had spent 2 decades trying to stop. It was, quite literally, believed to be the safest place in all of Iran. Last night, at roughly 3 o'clock in the morning local time, 2 American B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, flying directly from Whiteman Air Force Base in the middle of Missouri, proved that assumption completely wrong. And they did it in about 30 seconds. Welcome back to Alex on World Affairs. Today we are breaking down what may be the single most significant military escalation in the Middle East in decades. The first ever confirmed combat use of the GBU-57 massive Ordnance Penetrator, the largest non-nuclear bomb in the entire American arsenal, dropped on the most heavily fortified target on the face of the earth. Now, I want to be clear about what this video is and what it isn't. We are not here for the hyperbole flooding social media today. We are not here to repeat the loudest, fastest, most exaggerated version of events. We are here to lay out exactly what happened, step by step, using verified statements from U.S. Central Command, technical analysis from established defense publications, and initial satellite damage assessments from commercial imaging companies. By the end of this video, you will understand not just what that bomb did to that mountain, but why military analysts are quietly saying that the fundamental rules of global deterrence just changed overnight. So let's get into it. Sourced and careful, the way this story actually deserves to be told. Before we get anywhere near the weapon itself, you have to understand the target, because striking Fordow is nothing like hitting an airfield, or a barracks, or a missile launcher sitting out in the open desert. According to detailed schematics published over the years by the Institute for Science and International Security, the Fordow fuel enrichment plant isn't simply an underground bunker. It is built inside a hollowed-out mountain near the holy city of Qom. It was deliberately chosen by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps for one very specific reason: the geology directly above it. Hundreds of feet of dense, layered rock were calculated by Iranian engineers to be proof against every standard bunker-busting weapon in the world, including the older penetrators the United States had used in past conflicts. For years, the consensus assessment in both Washington and Tel Aviv was blunt and deeply uncomfortable. It held that the only way to reliably destroy Fordow, to actually reach the centrifuge halls buried deep inside, was with a tactical nuclear weapon. And that was a threshold no American president had ever been willing to cross. So Fordow became a sanctuary. It's where Iran moved its most advanced centrifuges. It's where it stored its most sensitive, most highly enriched material, specifically to protect those assets from the exact kind of war that is now broken out. So striking it with conventional weapons wasn't just a tactical decision. It was a statement, a declaration to the entire world that the very concept of a safe zone inside Iran no longer exists. Now let's walk through the operation itself in the order it actually happened, because the logistics alone tell you the scale of what we're dealing with here. According to flight tracking data, later confirmed in broad strokes by Pentagon officials speaking to defense reporters, this operation began nearly 37 hours before the bombs ever hit the ground. 2 B-2 Spirit bombers of the 509th Bomb Wing launched from Missouri. Read that again. This was not a regional strike launched from a base in Qatar or from Diego Garcia out in the Indian Ocean. This was a direct global strike mission flown from the American homeland, all the way to central Iran and back again. That mission profile required multiple aerial refuelings over the Atlantic and over Europe, carefully coordinated with a fleet of aerial tanker aircraft. And this detail matters far more than it might first appear. A strike flown from the continental United States relies on 0 regional allies. It requires no permission from a neighboring country that might, for political reasons, deny the use of its airspace or its bases for something this explosive. It is the ultimate expression of independent, self-contained military power, the ability to reach out and strike any single point on the planet without asking anyone else for help. While those bombers were still in the air, the skies over Iran had to be prepared. According to Iranian state media reports, corroborated by internet monitoring observatories that recorded sudden nationwide connectivity drops, a significant cyber attack targeted Iran's integrated air defense network in the hours before the strike. This was reportedly followed by suppression missions, carrier-based fighter jets firing anti-radiation missiles designed to home in on and destroy the radar sites protecting the airspace approaches to Qom. The goal was simple: blind the defenses first, then send the bombers through the gap. And then the B-2s arrived over the target. This is the point where we need to stop and talk about the weapon itself, because this is the detail that almost all of the fast, mainstream coverage is glossing over today. They are calling it a big bomb. That description doesn't even begin to capture what this thing actually is. The GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, often shortened to the MOP, is a weapon that exists for one scenario and one scenario only. This exact one. It weighs 30,000 pounds. To put that number in perspective, that is roughly the weight of a fully loaded F-16 fighter jet dropped as a single piece of ordnance. It is, by any measure, a monster. But here is the thing. It's not the weight alone that makes it special. It's the design philosophy behind it. Most bombs are built to create a massive blast wave on the surface, to explode outward and destroy everything around the point of impact. The MOP is the complete opposite. It is essentially a 20-foot-long steel spear, forged from a classified high-strength alloy, and its entire purpose is to survive the initial impact and keep traveling downward through solid earth. According to Air Force technical specifications, the MOP uses a delayed, hardened fuse system. It does not explode when it strikes the mountain. Instead, it slams into the rock at supersonic speed, converting all 30,000 of those pounds into raw kinetic energy. Energy that drives the weapon deep into the ground, punching through rock, through reinforced concrete layers, through hardened blast doors. Only after it has burrowed deep inside the structure does the warhead finally detonate. It's designed to carry the destruction to the target, from the inside, rather than just shaking it from far above. And here is the single most important operational detail of this entire strike. The B-2s did not drop just one of these. According to initial briefing information cited by Pentagon correspondents, the two bombers dropped a total of 4 massive ordnance penetrators on the Fordow complex, in rapid succession. Military civil engineers have a term for this technique. They call it stacking. The first bomb fractures and shatters the rock cap covering the mountain. The second bomb flies straight down into the crater and the fractured rock left behind by the first, penetrating even deeper. The third and fourth follow the exact same path, driving further and further into the now weakened structure. It is, in effect, a jackhammer working on a geological scale. They did not simply want to shake the facility and hope for the best. They wanted to physically collapse hundreds of feet of mountain directly down onto the centrifuges still spinning inside. Let me pause here for just a second because I'm genuinely curious about something. Drop a comment below with the code 30K if you already knew this weapon. The 30,000-pound GBU-57 actually existed before today's headlines. And type "new to me" if this is the very first time you're hearing that the United States has been quietly holding a 30,000-pound penetration bomb in reserve for exactly this kind of target. I want to get a real sense of how widely this capability was actually understood outside of military and defense circles, because I suspect the answer is going to surprise a great many people. Now, here's where the story gets far more complicated than the headlines are letting on, because the headlines today are all screaming one single word: destroyed. Fordow destroyed. Iran's nuclear program erased. But if you slow down and look carefully at the actual post-strike analysis, the real assessments, rather than the celebratory social media posts, the picture becomes much, much murkier. And this is the part I really need you to understand, because it completely changes how you should interpret this entire event. We have early commercial satellite imagery, captured roughly 12 hours after the strike. That imagery shows massive surface disruption on the mountain above the facility, enormous craters, visible landslides, and tunnel entrances that appear to be completely buried and blocked by collapsed rock. On the surface, the damage is undeniable. There is no serious question that the Fordow facility is, right now, non-functional. Nothing is being enriched inside that mountain today. But, and this is absolutely critical, destroying access to a facility is not the same thing as destroying the contents of that facility. According to sober analysis from arms control experts published in the hours after the strike, we currently have absolutely zero independent verification of what actually happened inside those centrifuge halls, 300 feet below the surface. Did the mountain fully collapse and crush everything inside? Or did the hardened blast doors hold, trapping the nuclear material inside a sealed chamber, but leaving that material physically intact? And here's where this connects directly to something we've covered before on this channel. Remember, the international inspectors from the IAEA have been locked out of Iran's nuclear sites for months now. which means we do not actually know, with any real certainty, exactly how much enriched material was inside Fordow at the precise moment those 4 bombs struck. Think carefully about what that means. If that highly enriched material was buried under rubble, but not actually vaporized or destroyed by the blast, then the world now faces an entirely new nightmare. A highly radioactive, chemically unstable site containing enough fissile material for potentially several nuclear weapons buried beneath a collapsed mountain in the middle of an active war zone, a site that no inspector, no scientist, and no soldier can safely reach to verify. So here is the uncomfortable twist sitting at the very center of this story. By destroying Fordow, the United States may not have actually solved the nuclear problem at all. It may have simply buried it, sealed it away in a place where it can never be inspected, never be verified, and never be safely removed. We may not have eliminated the material. We may have just entombed it where no one on Earth can ever account for it again. Let me now give you my own honest analysis of what this strike actually means for the broader war. And as always on this channel, I want to be very clear. This next part is my personal assessment and interpretation, not a directly reported fact from any single source. I believe this strike was ultimately less about the physical destruction of Fordow and far more about psychological shock, a message aimed not just at the leadership in Tehran, but at capitals watching very closely in Beijing and in Moscow. For decades now, the foundational assumption held by every adversary of the United States has been remarkably simple. If you dig deep enough, if you pour enough concrete, if you build under enough solid rock, then you are safe from American military power. Safe from everything short of a nuclear weapon. That single assumption is the entire bedrock of North Korea's defense strategy. It is how China plans to protect its most critical strategic forces. It is the logic behind deeply buried command bunkers all over the world. By actually using the massive Ordnance Penetrator in combat, for the first time in history, the United States just shattered that assumption in front of the entire world. They demonstrated in real time that there is no true sanctuary left anywhere on planet Earth against conventional American air power. The message is unmistakable. If we can crack open Fordow, the single hardest target that exists, then we can crack open anything you build. And that fundamentally changes the calculation for Iran's supreme leader. He can no longer simply assume that he can ride out an American air campaign by disappearing into a deep bunker. His own personal safety and the survival of his regime's most critical assets is no longer guaranteed by geology. And that kind of sudden, profound vulnerability tends to push cornered leaders toward one of two extremes. Either it pushes them toward immediate capitulation and negotiation, or it pushes them toward a desperate use it or lose it decision to lash out with whatever capabilities they still have left before those capabilities can be taken from them too. And that, in my honest assessment, is exactly why we may be entering the single most dangerous phase of this entire conflict right now. Not despite the success of the strike, but precisely because of it. Iran's leadership has just been forced to confront the reality that they have nowhere left to hide. There's one more layer of speculation I want to add here, and again, I want to flag it clearly as my own reasoning rather than reported fact. The timing and the sheer scale of this strike. 4 of the most expensive, most exotic conventional bombs on Earth, delivered by 2 of the rarest aircraft in the American fleet, flown all the way from the American homeland. This was not a routine military operation. This was a deliberate demonstration. Everything about it was engineered to be witnessed. And when a strike is designed as much for its audience as for its physical target, it usually means the real objective is to force a decision. Washington isn't simply trying to damage Iran's program. It's trying to break the will to continue it. Now, the question everyone is asking, what does Iran actually do next? Iran's leadership has already publicly vowed what they are calling crushing retaliation. Now, we have heard that exact phrase from Tehran before. The last time they promised it, we saw waves of ballistic missiles launched at American bases across the region. But the situation now is fundamentally different from anything that came before. Their ultimate sanctuary, the one place they truly believed was untouchable, has just been breached in front of the entire world. And a response to that kind of humiliation is likely to be something we have not yet seen in this war. The realistic options in front of Tehran are all dangerous ones. They could unleash a massive ballistic missile barrage aimed at US installations, accepting the near certainty of an even heavier American counterstrike in return. They could once again move to close the Strait of Hormuz entirely, choking off a fifth of the world's oil and deliberately inflicting economic pain on the entire globe in an attempt to pressure Washington from the outside. Or they could turn to asymmetric options, activating proxy forces across the region, or reaching for cyber and covert capabilities to strike back in ways that are harder to attribute and much harder to answer. The most dangerous possibility of all, though, ties directly back to that buried, unverified nuclear material we discussed earlier. If Iran's leadership has genuinely concluded that their program can no longer be protected from American bombs, some analysts quietly fear that this could actually accelerate, rather than deter, a final push toward weaponization, using whatever material managed to survive. And that is the ultimate paradox of this entire strike. The very action taken to stop the bomb could, in the very worst case, become the reason a cornered regime decides it can no longer afford to wait. Finally, I want to take a moment to step back from the weapon yields and the penetration depths and the strategic chessboard and think about the human reality on the ground near Qom today. Because while we sit here and analyze bomb specifications and satellite images, there are thousands upon thousands of ordinary civilians living in the towns and villages that surround that mountain. Reports coming out of Iran across social media, and I want to be honest with you, these are unverified, but they are strikingly consistent, describe an earthquake-like shockwave that shattered windows for miles in every direction. They describe a towering plume of dust and smoke that reportedly blotted out the early morning sun for hours. These are people who have been living, whether they ever chose to or not, right next to one of the most obvious military targets on the entire planet for 15 years. They had no say in their government's nuclear ambitions. They had no vote on whether an enrichment plant should be buried in the mountain beside their homes. And this morning, they woke up to the reality of roughly 120,000 pounds of high explosives detonating deep in the earth in their own backyard. And there is a longer-term human cost we simply cannot ignore either. The environmental consequences of cracking open a nuclear enrichment facility, even with entirely conventional weapons, are genuinely unknown and potentially serious for the local population. If any of that radioactive material was breached or dispersed in the collapse, the people who will live with the consequences are not the decision makers in any capital. They are the farmers, the families, and the children living in the shadow of that mountain, who had nothing to do with any of this. It is worth sitting with that tension for just a moment. A single facility, buried inside a single mountain, has now become the intersection point of global superpower strategy, nuclear proliferation, and the daily lives of ordinary people who never once asked to be placed at the center of any of it. So here's where things actually stand based on everything that has been independently reported and confirmed so far. The United States has, for the first time in history, used its most powerful conventional weapon, the 30,000-pound GBU-57, in combat, striking Iran's most fortified nuclear facility at Fordow with 4 of them in rapid succession, delivered by B-2 stealth bombers flown directly from the American homeland. The facility is, without question, non-functional today, but whether the highly enriched material inside was actually destroyed or merely sealed away beyond anyone's reach remains completely unverified. And in the space left by that uncertainty sits the entire future of this war. What we can say for certain is this: a line has been crossed that cannot be uncrossed. The world just learned that no bunker, no matter how deep, is truly safe anymore. And every adversary of the United States watched it happen in real time. Thank you for sitting through this full breakdown, a story that genuinely deserves the complete sourced picture, rather than a stripped-down headline that leaves out everything that actually makes it matter. This is exactly the kind of story where the details are everything. The difference between a facility destroyed and a facility merely sealed. The difference between material eliminated and material simply buried. The difference between the end of a nuclear program and the beginning of an even more dangerous chapter. If you want the next update on this, the moment it is independently confirmed, not the rumors, not the noise, but the verified reality, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. Drop a like if careful, sourced coverage like this is genuinely useful to you as you try to make sense of a world that is changing faster than the headlines can keep up. And share this video with anyone you know who's been following this conflict but hasn't yet seen a clear explanation of what actually happened inside that mountain. I'll see you in the next one.